Uh, Hello, everyone. And especially good to see my old friend Tapani and Sokta and Chongipa. I'm honored to speak today at Edtech Korea Forum 2020. Okay, my presentation title is Responding of COVID-19, the status and challenge of online classes in Korea. My presentation consists of 7 parts. First, introduction. Second, school closure and preparing for online class. Third, main online learning platform I will introduce. And fourth, how to prepare for online class. Fifth, what is the online class in practice? Sixth, I will briefly introduce a platform for higher education. And lastly, with the conclusion. And as you see picture, the world is suffering from the corona pandemic. At the beginning of COVID-19, all school was closed. But Korea succeeded in quarantine in a democratic way. Korea ratio of deaths and those of confirmed case are very low. So professor and teacher should teach with distance and use technology. We cannot help using Edtech for distance education. As you know, Edtech can overcome educational limitation, for example, time and distance and economy, etc. So now I would like to introduce the online school opening, decision-making process and preparation in Korea in March. Korea used to start school in March. The Ministry of Education and the Center for Disease Control closely cooperated, delayed school opening. After 2 weeks of postponed the school opening, and 2 weeks later, online school was announced and preparation began. And in the first stage, third middle and high school opened on April 9th. In second place, on April 6th, elementary school post 5th, 6th grade and middle school first and second grade were opened. And lastly, on April 20th, first and second, third grade of elementary school opened. At that time, parents were worried because students didn't do anything for months, especially parents preparing for college entrance exam. The government decided on online education in consideration of various opinions, such as a gap between retaker and the third grade high school student. When we start distance learning, we should use online education platform. So we prepared 2 platforms for the K-12 online school opening. KERIS, our organization, was in charge of elementary school, and EBS was in charge of middle and high school. KERIS used to be charging for using ICT in education. And also, we have various online learning platforms and digital textbook, education management information system like NEIS and KEdufine, etc. And EBS is public broadcasting operation in charging for educational TV and radio. For systematic online school opening, we preparing for following courses. First, the public infrastructure for distance education were expanded. Second, supported the teachers' capacity building. Third, created guideline for online education system. In our case, the biggest reason for choosing online classes is that 97% of Korea house can access in internet. In order for all 6 million students to access at the same time, the KERIS e-learning site, which was used by 47,000 people. So we have to be expanded by 7 times within 2 weeks. And the EBS online classes, which was used by just 10,000 people. So we have to be expanded by 300 times within a month. And since the first and second grade of elementary school students are not familiar with the digital device, so we urgently organized the EBS broadcasting. A lot of content was needed for the online class. KERIS had already about 5,500 contents, and EBS and about 43,000 contents. And the Ministry of Education approved the e-books and digital textbook development so far. Additionally, about 3,000 private audio contents were uploaded in the textbook that listen to English and math and social studies, science and history. At this time, the regulation of copyright was relaxed so that teachers could access copyrighted materials. There were 495 pilot schools for online learning. Teachers and schools voluntarily created and operated various services. One of them, school on-site to provide teachers with information regarding online platform and to share idea of teaching and classroom management. And teachers own service to support teachers experience technical difficulties by remotely and connecting to their device. And our success point is the community. So we create with a representative teacher in every school. So here they communicated directly with the Ministry of Education and KERIS and EBS to share their thought and current situation. On April 21st, about 1.7 million and 530,000 contents created by teachers were created in just 2 weeks. When students access KERIS site, we call the e-학습터, that means learning place, and EBS online class site, then they can use their grade contents. You can see a slide, example English. When student next online class type were defined and guideline for basic classic management were developed and distributed. School were quarantined and teacher conduct classes. We have created 10 rules for successful online classroom management. As you see this slide, left side is 5 is for service stability. Right side is 5 is for safe use. Especially we important the flexible with class hour based on individual school condition. For example, we can reduce from 1 hour to 20 or 30 minutes. And also we important point is very important safe components. So we recommend do not use insecure video conferencing application and install security patch before use that. And school prepare and learn online classes. The Ministry of Education present standard for online class to school and provide guideline for attendance and evaluation. And also it provide a public platform and utilize private content and platform. As you saw before slide, I will explain about type of class. We have 3 type of class. Number 1 class type operated real-time interactive class. Number 2 is content-oriented class. Number 3, task-oriented class. Real-time interactive class use video conferencing tool. For example, Zoom and WebEx and Google, Microsoft Teams, and part of domestic tool, Naver, Line, Works, etc. And second, the content-oriented class is a student to watch video, record lecture, and or learning content. After watching a video, students engage in discussion by leaving comment or asking and answering questions about what they have learned their parents. Last task-oriented class is just a teacher give task for self-directed learning and monitor student progress based on achievement standard of each subject. As a result of online classes operating, Teacher prefer task-oriented class type. Student prefer content-oriented class. The reason why students don't like access on time, teacher have difficult to create video. The most important issue of online class is attendance check and evaluation. As you can see, this slide, content-oriented class support all functions with real-time checking by teacher. So we have to provide good e-learning platform. Next, for evaluation, we take a school offline by written test and based on teacher's observation, both online and offline. And now I will explain about online class platform or higher education. Basically, each university and college is responsible itself to operating online class. But Ministry of Education was built in a center to support university without learning management system through KERIS. Additionally, KERIS is operating repository of uploading professor online lecture, support to training, webinar, manual, guideline of copyright, etc. And lastly, I would like to speak about overcoming challenge. First, personal device is essential for online class, So we 280,000 students applied to rent digital device as of April 16. This time, private company, LG, Samsung, and KB Bank, cooperate with the government to solve this digital divide. And second, we faced three challenges for disadvantaged students. First and second year of elementary school, students were not familiar with digital device. So support educational content through EBS TV channel. And the students from multicultural family encounter language barrier. So give information material in various language like Vietnam, and students with disability had less access to online media, so provide special learning packet and material with the home visit. For example, we include subtitle in content for hearing impairment. And third, in order to reinforcing communication among online class stakeholder, learning helpline to give immediately feedback to teachers, parents, and students to address any technical difficulty. Honestly, almost parents and teachers were stressed from technical difficulty. And finally, the conclusion is as following. The most important thing is that all stakeholders have a consensus that education should not stop. Although facing a crisis, this chance should be used as an opportunity for educational innovation. In order to provide AI education in preparation for the first industrial revolution, it must be based on platform and big data. Although it was been equipped with the coronavirus, but it must be developed as a golden opportunity to implementation, intelligent, personalized learning. We again realized the importance of international cooperation due to the coronavirus. Therefore, joint effort should be further strengthened to solve the education issue of each country. And I hope that my presentation has helped you. Thank you for being with me and listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Orkin. I hope everyone can hear me and see my presentation on the screen. And thank you to UNESCO and the organisers of this conference for the invitation. It's great to be able to connect with people even at this time when we might feel a bit isolated. So my name is Edmund MISSON. I'm with the Australian Institute for Teaching and School Leadership, and you can see here the vision and the mission of our organisation, which is focused on excellent teaching and school leadership to have the maximum impact on learning for children and young people in Australia. We are a national organisation in a federal system. So you see on the map there, we have all the borders in place. Education is run by the states and territories in Australia, and our job is to give some coherence and guidance to our efforts to support teaching and leadership. I always think it's useful to get a sense of the scale of an education system in these presentations. So you'll see in Australia we have nearly 10,000 schools, nearly 4 million students, and over 300,000 teachers. Another feature of our system is that it's very diverse. So 70% of the schools are run by state governments, but there's also, as you see, a large Catholic system and a large number of independent schools, and these are sort of brought into the system by receiving public funding, although they also charge fees, which I believe is a slightly unusual combination internationally. So here is my attempt to summarise the work of my organisation on one slide. So it's very much based on a career stage model from the pre-service teacher at university right through to our best teachers, highly accomplished and lead teachers, and then on into school leadership and ultimately into principal positions. And probably the foundation documents that are nationally agreed here are the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers, and I'll talk a bit more about those later on, and also a professional standard for principals. And the teacher standards in particular underpin a lot of the other processes in Australia. So they're the basis for the accreditation of teacher education programs. So those programs are accredited based on an assessment that they will produce graduates who meet the standards at the graduate career stage. Teachers then go through an induction period and gain full registration, again on the basis that they meet these standards at the proficient career stage. And then finally, teachers in Australia can apply for certification as highly accomplished or lead teachers and gain that recognition, again by an assessment against the higher levels of the teacher standards. And then we also work to support teachers to apply for leadership positions and to create a pipeline of high quality leaders in our schools. The other thing that my organisation does is we produce support materials for teachers. So some examples down here. I'll come back to the teacher self-assessment tool because that also gives us rich data on the capabilities of teachers, and things like the illustrations of practice, which are videos of classroom teaching, but also of things like scenarios that new principals might face when they start in schools. And they're all tied back to the standards so that it's easier for teachers to navigate and find the support they need. As I said, probably the single most important policy framework we have in Australia are the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers. And you can see there the 7 standards, the broad areas that are covered. So the first 2 deal with professional knowledge about students and about the content you're teaching. Numbers 3, 4 and 5 really deal with classroom teaching. We call these the professional practice standards. And then the last two deal with, we call them professional engagement. So engaging in professional learning and engaging with the broad range of people teachers need to engage with to be effective. So it's quite a broad conception of what teaching involves. Now, I thought I'd just draw attention in this forum to two of the standards that deal with ICT explicitly, and it also gives you a sense of how the standards progress through the career stages. So we have Program Standard 2.6 under professional knowledge is about the capacity of teachers to use effective strategies to integrate ICT into their practice. The other really relevant one is 4.5, which I guess deals with cyber safety, if you like. And this is obviously an emerging area. And you see here also the structure of the standards where we move from a graduate teacher demonstrating understanding, a proficient teacher using these strategies, and then at the highly accomplished and lead career stages, it's about being an exemplary practitioner, but also about having a wider influence on colleagues and on things like school policies. So that's the policy framework, and I think Australia therefore went into the pandemic with a strong policy framework around teaching that did pick up some of these issues around the use of technology. Now, this is a complicated diagram, but that's kind of the point I'm trying to illustrate. This is the different school closures in different parts of Australia. So I said it was a diverse and devolved system. So you see that if you're in some states like South Australia, here there was really no remote learning. There was some pupil-free days where teachers prepared for remote learning, but they never had to implement it. Other states have been learning remotely for much longer. And then in Victoria, where I am, they've been in and out of remote learning. So, and it's still going, actually. This goes up to July, but as I sit here, my two daughters are studying upstairs, I hope. So I get the point of this really is that, first of all, the onset of remote learning was very rapid. So our school year, like, or probably starts earlier than Korea's, actually in February. So in the middle of term one, teachers in a lot of places were suddenly asked to move online. Secondly, a very varied experience across the country. So we were trying to support some teachers who were moving into remote learning and some who were dealing with the transition back to school. And secondly, there's a real possibility, it's already happened in one state, that schools will be in and out of remote learning. So teachers are dealing and school leaders are dealing with a high degree of uncertainty. Some of what we know, it's early days obviously, but some of what we know about the impact of COVID on schooling in Australia. First of all, a bit, actually not quite to the level of Korea, but the vast majority of households with children do have some internet access. Now, there's been a lot of effort to provide devices, to provide dongles and other things to get access for those who don't have it. But the concern about access is probably not the main one in Australia. The next points are a results of a teacher survey about their concerns at this time. And you'll see that the top two are about the students, are about isolation and student well-being, and then learning loss. So that's what teachers are sort of experiencing as the impacts. Honestly, I think it's too early to talk about the impact on learning outcomes. There's concern, as was raised, I think, by a number of speakers already, about the impact on disadvantaged and vulnerable students, and that needs careful attention. There's also some evidence. Professor John Hattie, who's the chair of the board of my organisation, so I have to mention him, has done research on the aftermath of the Christchurch earthquake in New Zealand, and actually found that in terms of student learning, students mostly bounced back pretty quickly. So let's hope that's the case worldwide in the aftermath of this pandemic. Look, the other thing that's been really interesting is that parents whose children are learning at home suddenly have a much greater appreciation of the work that teachers do, because first of all, they see that work, and secondly, they get an understanding of how difficult it can be to guide the learning of one child while they're learning at home, let alone a class of 20 or 25 or 30 at once. So I think there's a real opportunity there for us to take advantage of that new respect that people might have for teachers and the work they do. Here's a little bit more about the impact of the pandemic on teacher competency. So these are the two focus areas I mentioned. So 2.6 is about the use of ICT in teaching, 4.5 is about cyber safety, and this is data from our teacher self-assessment tool. And I've focused on the state of Victoria, which is most affected. So the first thing we see is that there was some rapid improvement over a period of a few months, numbers of teachers feeling much more confident in these two areas. Secondly, we have a real problem with the cybersecurity the focus area. So teachers don't feel confident in this area. These would be in the bottom three results for across the self-assessment tool and the standards as a whole. So we do have some evidence on the impact, and it will be interesting to keep monitoring this. I think overall a positive story about teachers rapidly becoming more confident with their use of ICT. So that was the challenge we faced, was how to support teachers in these diverse circumstances dealing with very rapid change. And this is what we came up with at the national level, the Australian teacher response, and the internet address is there if you want to take a look after the session. And really there were three parts of this. The first was what we called the Teacher Resource Hub, where we quickly managed to put together a set of resources that seemed very relevant to what teachers were going through. Second, we published what we call a spotlight publication, a quick summary of the research on what works in online and distance learning. And finally, we set up and moderated a Facebook group where teachers could share their own strategies and really support each other as well, which I think is incredibly important. So the Teacher Resource Hub, we managed to find or create very quickly over 170 resources on some of the themes that you see in the last point there, which were really those things that teachers were telling us were important to them at this time. We mainly in the time we had took them from trusted sources, so education departments in each state, other national agencies. And I guess I saw a question earlier about quality assurance of resources. That really, I guess, was the shortcut to that, was trusting the organisation rather than examining the resource itself in detail. And these are the criteria we used. I think particularly important here. Currency, so it's relevant to one of the topics that we think teachers are interested in at the moment, and usefulness, so very practical, easy to access resources, because we knew that teachers were feeling overwhelmed and had to make very quick changes to their practice, so it didn't seem fair or useful to ask them to read long documents with a lot of academic content. There's a place for that, but this wasn't the time. Look, the research spotlight, very, very similar. So short, very succinct summary on some of the topics you see there on the screen, and a lot of links to other resources and resources that we felt would be very practical for teachers. So this is just the impact of this. Here are some of the qualitative comments we got online and through other social media. Just as an example, there are nearly 5,000 members of the Facebook group. The Spotlight, the research publication, had around 100,000 views. Remember, this is in a workforce of about 400,000, and that's 20 times more, I'm told, than any other Spotlight we've put out. So clearly there's an appetite for this sort of very targeted, very practical support. The videos, particularly those with experts, have been viewed over 160,000 times across a range of platforms. We really promoted these on social media and so on. So it does appear that even at this busy, perhaps especially at this busy time, teachers have valued this type of support. And that's really the first of my lessons learned. So teachers do value the opportunity to connect, to share resources and to support each other online. And that is particularly where the support is very practical and very timely. And, you know, I think this is similar to what we're all experiencing, that we're finding that we can do things online that maybe we thought were difficult to do online. Secondly, I've mentioned parents. I think it's just made it really clear that parents do want to be involved in their children's education and now perhaps have more appreciation for the job that teachers do. The other thing I think we've discovered is that teachers, schools and systems can adapt very quickly when they need to. And although we don't want everyone operating under extreme pressure all the time, maybe we underestimate what we are capable of when we need to be. I think there's a real theme here about well-being and resilience, and both I think teachers, as we saw in the survey results earlier, are very worried about the well-being of their students. I think teachers and everybody else should be also have concern for the well-being of teachers, because we are asking them to do a lot on top of their normal jobs. And also, as I said, there are still some capability gaps, and you know, if I had to prioritise one thing based on what we know about Australia, I think it is that cyber safety, cyber bullying type of area is an area where teachers seem to feel uncertain. My other point is, I think all of these should be lessons for us, not just the next time we have a crisis, but in the new normal, because teachers are always under pressure. They're always time poor. They're always looking for new ideas, and they always need to be resilient. So what I'd argue is that for the new normal, if you like, the system that emerges on the other side of this, we should be looking to have an adaptive system, a system that understands what the needs of teachers and leaders are. So I think the sort of data we get from our self-assessment tool, other systems will have different data sources on professional learning needs. When there's more time, user testing and user-centred design of products and supports we make for teachers and leaders, and also using things like social media where teachers communicate to understand what their concerns are. I think just-in-time support is critical. So first of all, let's go out and curate the resources that exist, because there are a lot out there and it's growing every day. Let's then, where we develop new material, let's make that to fill the gaps. Let's allow teachers forums to share their own practice. And let's put all that together so teachers aren't jumping around different sites trying to find it. I also think in all this, we need to prioritise teacher, leader and student wellbeing, and do whatever we can around administrative requirements, responding to incidents in schools, whatever it is, to take pressure off teachers and leaders wherever we can. And finally, let's respect teachers as really important frontline workers in our society. So look, those are some observations. I'm very happy to take questions. Here are the various details about how you can connect with us and follow up on any of this, including my email address down the bottom there, and I'm happy to share this presentation.
I just would like to give you a brief background and some basic statistics before I walk through a number of presentations in here. First is that we have totally 14,000 schools. I refer to preschool to upper secondary school, 14,000 totally. We have around 3.2 million students at school, and we have 92,000 teachers. So these are the three target groups that we are trying to enhance and to deal with during this COVID period. I think Cambodia is quite lucky that we managed to have the Department of IT be created. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport created the Department of IT in 2016. It was less than 4 years ago, and the department became active in providing and mainstreaming ICT and English into the teacher training system, as well as the school system, strengthening, digitalizing the education resources. That has been very helpful. And when the COVID crisis came in March in Cambodia, when the school started to close down, the Department of IT, under the framework of the policies that was developed in 2018, and has been instrumental to enhance the access as well as to increase the capacity of access of all the education providers as well as education officials to deal with the issues. So the purpose of my presentation of today is to walk you through Cambodia quick response to teachers. You have heard about Korea cases on higher education. You heard about Australian cases in terms of content, teacher education related, as well as an organization that has been active in hand access to quality education through teachers and school in terms of the content development and so on and so forth. So the case of Cambodia, we look into what teachers' needs are and what kind of teacher training, teacher support mechanism, and teacher preparation has been done during the COVID-19 crisis. And to share teacher training and teacher professional development system before and during the COVID, you would know about Cambodia, how we prepare teachers and how we support teachers and how the teachers are deployed and professionally developed. And to share with you the existing support mechanism to ensure teacher qualification upgrading that has been an issue since many teachers were recruited during the post-conflict, and they were recruited on ad hoc basis. Now we try to expand the duration of number of years of teacher preparation through a qualification upgrading program as well as professional development program for teachers to sharpen as well as to help and support them to do better with the teaching method support as well as the classroom management and material productions. So this is just a snapshot of the current teacher education and training system in Cambodia. We have one, we call it NIE, the National Institute of Education, that prepare upper secondary school teachers only. And the bachelor degree holder can apply and take the entrance exam. And after passing the exam, they have 1 year to be educated, to be trained in terms of pedagogical skills, in classroom management skill, as well as additional on the subject strengthening. And then after 1 year, they have to take the exit exam, and then they will be automatically deployed to the needy upper secondary schools in the whole country. And we have we call Teacher Education College, TEC. It was created 2 years ago with the expansion and combining the provincial teacher training center and the regional teacher training and make it into Teacher Education College. It has been piloting in the last 2 years with the 12+2 and 12+4 program. 12 is 12 years of schooling education. The high school graduates, they can come and they receive training for 2 years, and they receive training for 4 years. And after their completion, they will be selected and deployed to primary and lower secondary schools. And we have the existing regional teacher training centers. We still have 4, and it's a combination of provinces, 3, 4, or 5 provinces into one. The region also provide 12+2 training program and to produce lower secondary school teachers. And we still have remaining 16 provincial teacher training centers, 12+2, to produce primary school teachers. And the preschool teacher training centers to produce preschool teachers. So you see, we have totally 26 institutions. If you would like to be upper teacher, you have to go to NIE. If you want to be lower secondary school teacher, you go to Teacher Education College, or you go to regional teacher training centers. If you want to go to be primary school teacher, you have to take provincial teacher training center. So it's the teacher education provider has been prepared and all over the country to accommodate the needs of training for teachers, but they are only doing pre-service rather than to do in-service training as for the time being. The teacher preparation program, I think I already mentioned briefly, and in order to get into NIE, at least the teacher candidate must have must have bachelor degree at least. They also welcome to have master degree or PhD if they want to be upper secondary school teacher, but they have to take the entrance exam. And provincial and regional, as well as the teacher education college, and the training is for 2 years or 4 years, and just with the school living certificate I mentioned earlier is 12+2 and 12+4, and all the entrance, the very competitive entrance and exit exam, and very competitive. I think that's what I observed. And it has been only 4 to 6% of the candidate managed to get into the training program. So it's very, very competitive. And our agenda is to attract highly competent candidates to be teachers, because for many years their teaching has not been recognized as a most wanted job. People, until they have no choice after they finish high school, they go to different field of studies such as engineering, economics, business, and then until they fail the other school university exam, and then they come to enroll or they come to apply for the teacher pre-service training. So now it has become popular because of the popularity of the teaching job and the better pay for teachers, and it become a good entry point into the public servants and to be teachers. I bring you in the issues of education under the COVID-19. In the context of Cambodia, the student and teacher were advised not to come to school, and classes were expanded since the 9th of March 2020. The crisis create inequality in the education system. The student from more advantaged background pursue innovative learning opportunity from various means of communication supported by their parents and community. Those from the disadvantaged family backgrounds in rural and remote area would be so for access into the new medium of instruction. As a result, the current measures using e-learning platform is negatively impacting the opportunity for all, but it has to seek alternative way. I think there has been, we have to enhance that even the schools are closed, the learning still happening, and Excellency Minister and the senior leadership of the ministry has been very active, inviting the outstanding teachers and to come to the ministry, and we prepare the what we call the studio room for live broadcasting, teaching, so that those who have access to ministry Facebook, the ministry Google Classroom, Telegrams, and Facebook, and website would access to all those teaching from grade 1 to grade 12 to ensure that the learning are not closed, and we have to be on whatever means that we can through the online medium of instruction. To continue with, we work on creating digital contents. When I say we, I refer to the ministry and as well as the various technical departments in the ministry for the digital education e-learning platform, by creating videos or learning contents to disseminate them by using Facebook, YouTube, e-learning system to provide education. Online education was launched and conducted by outstanding teachers. Like I mentioned earlier, they're very brave. Even they have to travel from provinces. We call for effective teachers who would like to contribute, teachers who are confident, teachers who are with experience, skills in providing online teaching and learning, and they come to the ministry to and we support them to do their teaching online and on the TV program as well as the radio program. And a month later, I refer to March, I refer to April, a new digital TV channel was established to provide distant learning to increase the outreach. Because I mentioned earlier, the connection, internet connection can be an issue, so we enlarge to TV channel and the radio program for the ethnic minorities as well as the poorest of the poor. At least they have access to radio program and TV program if they cannot have access to internet connection through Facebook, Telegram, and the other connection model to ensure that. And in some rural areas, teachers have to travel to different houses of the student and parents to give out the learning material, or the parents can come to school and the teachers are sitting in school to wait for students who would like to come one by one, you know, not in a large group, 3 or 5, to come to school and to get material as well as to ask questions directly with teachers. And teachers also travel on motorbike or bicycle to make sure that the students are at home, study and learn. So this is what has been done under the situation of the current COVID in the context of Cambodia. the ministry communicate education officials, students, parents about COVID awareness and how to stay safe in line with the Ministry of Health guideline, and as well as how to adapt to the new change of learning and new change of working. Digital Education Forum and establishment of the Center for Digital Education to provide digital education nationwide. So the Digital Education Forum was set up, and also the Center for Digital Education was also set up in order to respond promptly by the ministry. And also the ministry leaders travel to make sure that the school are operationalized, and also the teacher training centers, like I mentioned before, and have to be active and to engage teacher. I mean the teacher trainees, the student teachers to be active in learning. So to make sure that whatever means that we can ensure that the learning are not stopped, and even we close down school for safety reason, but learning must not stop. Point number 3, the harmonized digital platform and software used for e-learning and using Google Suite, Google Apps, while using traditional distance learning method for those with no internet connection and access, like I mentioned earlier. And to build partnership with other ministry and stakeholders to ensure the target groups, not only under the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport, but to ensure that other population that need education in other ministry also have access to education. This is what I just mentioned earlier, to ensure safety and well-being of students and teachers has become priority. And on now we also deal with the mental health of students and teachers in terms of I think they are complaining about too much online and too much on Zoom teaching and learning. And the general response is to ensure the continuity of learning of students and using distance education and more to ensure that all the support has been done. And now we've been working very hard to create learning contents and to invite, effective teachers and to support teachers on how to be creative on ground in terms of ensuring the teaching content has been produced and shared, and also the teacher to connect to all the students to ensure that it has to be well done before the national exam. National exam is for grade 9 and as well as for grade 12. And this is I just mentioned based on a request from UNESCO colleague to say a few words on the factory-based literacy program, and to make sure that the non-formal education program is not ceased, not stopped because of the COVID. In Cambodia, we have the program supported by UNESCO and DVV, and in terms of to ensure that the illiterate factory workers have access to literacy program. So it has been on. My presentation is to ensure, to share with you the literacy program for select government factory workers who are unable to read and to write, and it's still on. And it has been pre-recorded, has been shared, they studied through video clips, Telegram, and the other social media like Facebook and Twitter. So, and the literacy facilitator has been called to come to the ministry to provide 3 or 4 days training on how to conduct, how to produce teaching and learning material in form of soft preparation rather than to use hard copy. So the massive call for professional development for teachers as well as literacy facilitator has been enhanced. And have to move on. We still don't have much time. All the teachers training centers has been checked to make sure that they provide the teaching and learning program has been ensured for teacher trainers as well as teacher trainees. So this is a checkbox to make sure that all these teacher training centers are operationalized. And the challenges are still exist in terms of technology infrastructure. You are aware of Cambodia is a developing country, and the smartphone device has been used through Telegram and Facebook, and almost 95% of teachers, they have smartphone. So teachers use their own smartphone, but we still have issue in terms of low connectivity in rural and remote areas. And that's an issue of connection. And the other challenges is about the emotional and mental health of the student as well as teachers. And that we don't have the solution, but there are mentioned the Ministry of Health on how to take care of themselves during this COVID. I have to move it faster in terms of I think the conclusion is to look into how to build a system that is more resilient, and all the education personnel to be flexible in dealing with the issues. And we have to consider the recovery plan as well as to be strategy after the COVID period. Even we don't know why, but we have to be prepared for that. We have 2 points in the lesson learned. The digital education and digitalization of teaching and learning method for teachers, education providers, and especially for new teachers. And for new teachers, they are more in the advantage position than old teachers who've been in the system. Digital education will be part of our education system from now on, and English and ICT has been widely raised, and to make sure that the in-service training for teachers, and as well as to enhance student self-learning and approach. So this will have to bridge the digital device. And thank you very much, and I will be very pleased to hear comments and questions from the moderator as well as the participants. Thank you, everyone.